everybody and welcome to the United Stand. On today's afternoon show, De Ligt's price has been set. Are Manchester United willing to pay it? Should they pay it? We'll be discussing that. And as one defender looks like he's on his way in with De Ligt, another one could be off. The Branthwaite deal is looking very, very unlikely, coming from good sources that Manchester United won't re-enter the race for Branthwaite. What do you make about that? Unless something happens to Everton, of course. But Everton have a very strong stance right now. Also, Scott McTominay, Fulham are very interested, and Manchester United say that he is up for sale if it's the right bid. Should Manchester United explore a deal for Scott McTominay, and what could stop this deal happening? Because Fulham did come in for Scott McTominay last summer as well, but he didn't really want to leave. And how would you manoeuvre that deal? Is it the right deal for Manchester United to do? Would you keep him for his super sub appearances? Let me know down in the comments. Also, we've had some inclination over what the fee was paid for Dan Ashworth. I've not been on the show all weekend, not been on the show this morning obviously, but that Dan Ashworth deal is absolutely brilliant. The fee that we've paid for him, we're going to talk about that as well. Manchester United have really done well at getting that over the line, and Newcastle ended up caving in. And also, yeah, just going to Ugarte, forgot to even mention Ugarte. Manchester United could be putting in a bid any time for Ugarte, as that transfer seems to be speeding up by the second. But welcome everybody to the show. Thank you for joining me. Have my thoughts on De Ligt as well, because that story broke over the weekend, and to be honest, the De Ligt stuff, I'm a bit like this. I could be swayed on it, but it's not something that massively excites me. Get in the comments what you guys think. But let's start off on the breaking news this afternoon, and it's coming from Give Me Sport, and it's that Fulham are exploring a move for Scott McTominay, and Manchester United are willing to sell him at the right price. Scott McTominay to Fulham. First of all, would he want to go there? Second of all, what would be the price that Fulham could afford to pay? Third of all, should Manchester United be selling Scott McTominay? Well, let's put it this way. Everybody has a price. Everybody at Manchester United has a price, bar the likes of Bruno, Højlund, Mainu, Garnacho, and I think they mentioned like Anana as well, maybe even Dalot. So most people at Manchester United could be up for sale if the right bid comes in. Scott McTominay isn't somebody that Manchester United are actively trying to push through the door, but also, if a good bid comes in for him, they'd be open to selling him. Scott McTominay's deal runs out next year. If he stays this summer, they're going to trigger the one-year extension on it. We've already heard that news. Should Manchester United cash in on Scott McTominay, and how much would he be worth? Obviously, Scotland had a terrible Euros. I mean, let's be honest. But before the Euros, Scott McTominay was absolutely flying for Scotland. He was one of Manchester United's better players last season in terms of numbers. He scored a lot of goals for Manchester United, important goals as well. He had a decent performance in the FA Cup final. What is Scott McTominay worth? See, for me, we heard news that West Ham and Fulham were both in for Scott McTominay last summer, and Scott McTominay didn't want to go. He wanted to stay and fight for his place at Manchester United. Because let's be honest, if you're a player that's regularly playing minutes for Manchester United and you're on a really good wage at Manchester United, why would you want to go to a club that isn't as big as Manchester United? And I don't think the wage is that much of an issue, because Scott McTominay isn't on a massive wage anyway, to be fair. I think he's one of the lower earners. I think it's just the prestige of playing for Manchester United. Playing for Manchester United is better than playing for West Ham or playing for Fulham. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. But for Fulham, you would expect Scott McTominay would be starting every single week. When we bring the likes of Ugarte in, and you're looking at Manchester United's team next season, I don't see a world next season where Scott McTominay is in the starting 11. And I don't think he should be in the starting 11. As good as he was last season at points, Scott McTominay, for me, if he stays at Manchester United, at best is a utility player. He's a super sub that comes on off the bench. And I think he can do a job doing that. I think he can do a job coming off the bench. Defensively, he's got height. He can do a job if you defend in a lead. But also going forward, he can crash into the box and score you a goal. He knows how to score. He can do that. We've seen him do it multiple times. He's a clutch player. So I think he can be a good substitute option for Manchester United. But in the starting 11, there's no place for him. You look at the midfield and it's going to be, if Ugarte signs, Ugarte, Mainu and Bruno, no place for Scott McTominay there. You've also got Mount, who you're hoping is going to be injury-free next season, who's yet to make an impact. A lot of people say, play him up front. That's not going to happen. So McTominay doesn't really have a place. So for me, if I'm McTominay, I'm looking towards next season. I'm thinking, am I going to be starting? How many minutes I'm going to play? And if he wants to play every single week, I think he should genuinely think about this sort of move. I think he could maybe get a better club than Fulham, though, and that's no disrespect to Fulham, personally. I think pull him. I think Fulham are a good club. I think Marco Silva's done a good job, but I think Scott McTominay could go to a club that's doing better than Fulham. Personally, I think he could have a few more options on the horizon. So it'll be interesting if this Fulham story picks up, if any other clubs enter the race, and how much would you want for him? How much is he worth? Get your comments in. See, for me, if we were going to sell Scott McTominay, I'd want at least 25 million. I'd want at least 25 million. Like, how many goals did he score last season? He scored quite a few, and he had an impact. And, you know, yeah, for a top club, he's not going to be starting week in, week out. But for a club that's outside the top four and, you know, a Premier League club that's kind of trying to compete to get into European places like Europa League, Europa Conference League, I think McTominay could be a really good asset and a really important player to a club like that. So I'd want at least 25 million for Scott McTominay and for what he could offer. And you've got to remember, if McTominay does go, that's pure profit because he's from the academy that we can put back in to our transfer budget this summer, which also is going to be utilised by Dan Ashworth, who's immediately starting as director of football. So that could be a crucial little bit of cash as well for Manchester United in terms of reinvesting into the squad. We've got some super chats in already. Keep getting them in, guys. Alex Park says, member for 16 months. Thanks. Very short and simple there. Thanks. You're welcome. Patrick Lynch says, I'm less interested in exciting incomings. I want solid pros that will raise the base standard of the squad. Much more excited about departures. I think a lot of people are really excited to see who goes out the door because, like I would say, you know, we could sign the centre-backs we want. We can sign a striker. We can sign a midfielder. And I'll be absolutely over the moon about that. But if we go into next season and Donny van der Beek's still hanging around, Sancho's still hanging around, you know, we've not got rid of the certain players, you are going to be a little bit gutted, aren't you? I mean, if McTominay went, I actually do think it would be a bold statement, you know. I think it would be. A lot of people think, oh, it wouldn't be, you know, he's just, you know, he's a squad player. He's not as if he's like a crucial starting 11 player, but he's been in that first team for Manchester United for a long time. He came up through the academy. He's from the youth setup, which we know Manchester United holds near and dear to the heart, as we should. Like, I think that would be quite a big one to lose Scott McTominay. I think that would be a big statement. But I think for the right price, I'd absolutely be open to for him to go in. Thing is about McTominay, as a squad player, he knows what Manchester United's all about. His mentality is top. Apparently, he's one of the hardest trainers. I mean, in terms of the physical shape he's in unbelievable shape. Apparently, his like 5,000 metres is the same as like like a professional like athlete who does running like a, what do you say, like I think Ricky told me an Olympian runner, but I don't know if that can be right. Olympic standard like runner, I think that's what he told me. But Scott McTominay, in terms of mentality, in terms of passion, in terms of work rate, he's got it all, but he's just not good enough to be a starting 11 player. So if you can get that cash for him of pure profit to invest in the summer transfer window, Manchester United should absolutely explore it, but we should get the right price because there is value in McTominay and there is worth. The Wally set, a member for 1 month, says McTominay is too good for the bench but not good enough to start for Manchester United. He would start for West Ham. And that's what I meant when I said, I know Fulham are interested now and Fulham were interested last season, but McTominay could easily walk into a West Ham and start, I think. I do really think he could, and West Ham obviously is a more competitive club than Fulham, so he might want... I can understand if McTominay wants a more competitive club than Fulham. I can understand that because when West Ham were in the race last summer, I think he was open to it. But when West Ham left the race and it was just kind of Fulham left in the race towards the end of the transfer, I remember that. I remember it at the time. It was like the last few weeks of the transfer window and Fulham kind of came in for McTominay. And McTominay wasn't really interested in the move because it is a downgrade to go and play for Fulham. As much as I like watching him play, it is a downgrade. Lee Cape Town says, McTominay has to leave. It has to be made abundantly clear he's not part of the manager's plans. And as always, looking lovely, Beth. Thank you, Lee. Rob McCormack says, 18 for club and country last season. 18 goals for club and country. See, that is value. That is value. Let's get a poll running right now. Would you sell McTominay? Or would you keep him as a squad player? I want to see what you guys are thinking because I'm in the position now and people say I'm sitting on the fence, people say I'm being boring. Whereas if he did stay, I'd be absolutely open to it. I'd be fine with it as a squad player. off the bench. I don't want to see McTominay starting many games for Manchester United next season. I want our starting 11 to be of greater quality where McTominay doesn't have to start. But I think in important games, I think off the bench, he can be useful. So I'd be happy for him to stay as a squad player off the bench because I know his mentality's right, I know his work rate's right, I know he gets the club and I know he can make an impact and he's going to work hard under any circumstance. But if a bid comes in of 25 million or over, I think Manchester United have to accept and have to reinvest that into the squad because, you know, I think he's 27, he's got a year left on his deal, so the next contract's going to be the contract that's going to take him into his later years of his career as a professional footballer. I think Man United have to take the money. And I think McTominay needs to have that conversation with Ten Hag, you know, especially with Ugarte coming in. Where do you see me? Like, am I going to be starting? How many minutes do you see me getting? And Ten Hag has to be honest and say, look, I'd be happy for you to stay. I think you're useful for me off the bench. And, you know, I like what you do off the pitch. But I'm going to be honest, like, you're not in my plans to be in the starting 11 next season unless you push your way in like you did last season. And McTominay then has to kind of make that decision. We've got a couple more chats in. Mitchell says, McTominay doesn't suit where United want to go. And GDT Bath says, are we a charity? It's selling. We need to improve the squad. We need better talents. We've got Liam Clark in saying, you people badly undervalued McTominay. Dewsbury Hall just went for 30 million. Chelsea want 50 million for Gallagher, Caicedo, Rice, Enzo went for over 100 million. He's a 35 to 45 million player easily. He has only got a year left on his deal, though. You've got to remember that. I mean, 30 would be brilliant. I think I would sell him for around 30, but I think 25 or over, and I'm going to be evaluating that option. But like I said, if he stays, he stays. Get in the comments what you think. Next up on the agenda, we've got them talking about a midfielder leaving in Scott McTominay. Midfielder coming in, Manuel Ugarte. This story keeps getting more and more pace to it. I genuinely think we will sign Ugarte. I think there's too much information out there. And this is a transfer that's accelerated very, very quickly. It's coming in from Pete Hall that Manchester United are expected to make a formal offer for Manuel Ugarte soon. The club see Kobbie Mainoo as more of a box-to-box player, hence the need for a defensive-minded midfielder. And there was also some Uruguayan reports coming out about an hour ago saying that Manchester United could even bid today. They're in the process of kind of putting together a bid for Manuel Ugarte. Again, like I said, I'm going to move on to signings I'm a bit unsure of, by the way, in a bit. It's not like every single signing I'm like, yes. There is some signings I'm unsure of. I'm unsure of the Ligt sign. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But in terms of Manuel Ugarte, I'm really, really excited for this. The reason I'm excited for it, because I think it ticks so many boxes. Complements Erik ten Hag's style of play. Complements who he's going to be playing with in Kobbie Mainoo as a midfield partnership. Isn't on a stupid wage, he's on a very reasonable wage. We'll be able to get him for a decently reasonable price, I imagine. PSG want to sell. I think we'll get him probably for around 40 million, which I think is a good price. He's not a huge flashy name, but he's going to come in and he's going to work hard, and he's got passion, he's got leadership, he's got mentality. We need some of that. That's why I love a lot of South American players, because they have that grit. Manuel Ugarte has that. And also, on top of everything, he's only 23, so there's still so much more room for development, and there's hunger there, there's aspiration there. I think it's a really good signing, a really clever signing as well from Manchester United. Fits our budget, is the type of profile we need. I know some people are unsure on him, but honestly, I really do like the look of him, and I think he will work. Might be wrong, but I think he will work. I think his attributes suit exactly what we need. Yeah, he's not a perfect six, but you name me a perfect six that's out there on the market right now. The six market, as in defensive midfielders, at the moment is very slim pickings. It's very slim pickings. I mean, a lot of people talked about Zubimendi, and it's kind of just, I feel like that's a fan's pipe dream. We've not even looked into that. You look at the Sporting Lisbon midfielder, Jumlin, I think is how you say his name, who plays for Denmark. I think his release clause is around 70 million euros, something like that, 80 million euros. Like, the market is slim for sixes. Ugarte he's not the perfect midfielder, but he's got so much there that you can work with. So much there. Also, I saw someone the other day saying, we miss Fred's energy. We miss his attributes as a midfielder, and Ugarte is different to Fred, but he carries some of the same traits in the fact he is like a wasp. He is going to go and hunt the ball down off you. He does insert energy into the midfield, but Ugarte also, unlike Fred in my opinion, has brilliant anticipation, knows where the danger's going to be, can scan really well across the midfield. Could he be better forward thinking on the ball? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but that's room for development at only 23 years old. I think it's a really, really good deal for Manchester United if we get it across the line. And I think the bidding process is going to pick up pretty quickly with Ugarte. I think he could be potentially one of our first signings the way this is moving at the moment. The player wants to come, PSG want to sell. We just need to come to a conclusion on a fee. I just hope it's not a deal where we feel like we have to sell Casemiro first before we bring Ugarte in, because that might take a little bit of time to get that Casemiro deal moving. I do expect Casemiro to leave, but I think signing Ugarte as well kind of gives the nudge to Casemiro, like, we are moving on without you. Let's get this deal going, and then Casemiro can depart the club. So excited about the Ugarte deal as well. Let me just have a look where this poll is going with Scott McTominay. Sell or keep as a squad player. I'm torn, but we'll see what you guys say. Wow, 79% of you say sell and 21% say keep as a squad player. The one thing I would say is, where would we be without Scott McTominay this season? He got us out of jail so many times last season, but I also bring in the point, we don't want to be in 8th spot. We don't want to have to be in a position where we need Scott McTominay to come off the bench and bail us out. We want to be competing. We want to be competing towards the top of the table, and we want to be winning games, playing really good football with players at the top of their game. And when you're looking at a team that can play at that level, Scott McTominay isn't a player that should be starting for Manchester United. So if the right money comes in, yeah, I can understand the sale for that one. Also, a little bit of news. Oh, I wanted to say, on the club see Kobbie Mainoo as more of a box-to-box player, music to my ears, because Kobbie Mainoo can offer so much on the ball. He's so talented. It's actually crazy. Like, for England, for me, he was the best player the other night. Jude Bellingham obviously scored that unbelievable goal, and I think Jude Bellingham's such a leader, big game player, but Kobbie Mainoo, I think he was unfairly substituted. He was excellent again. And getting forward, carrying the ball forward and dragging players in when he's coming in and around the box because the ball just glues to his feet. Like, you want to utilise him in the final third, as good as he is going backwards in terms of what was I going to call it then? Interfering with play? Intercepting play. Intercepting play, that's the word I was looking for. As good as he is at intercepting play, and as good as he is at taking the ball off the back four and driving with it forward, you also want to use him in the final third. So it's good to see that we see him as that box-to-box player, because I think the majority of the fan base do. I was worried for a second that Ten Hag wanted to use him as a 6, because he did use him like that in a couple of games, and he can play there. He's a very talented midfielder, but I'm glad to see that the club see him more of a box-to-box, because you want to explore that with Kobbie Mainoo because of how talented he is on the ball and moving the ball forward as well. A little bit more news coming in from Pete Hall too. And it says, as it stands, Manchester United are not expected to make an offer for Jarrad Branthwaite, unless Everton show signs of lowering their asking price. So the Branthwaite deal has cooled down. I think he's come down a couple on the hotometer. It was the first player we bid for, obviously. But it's looking now that Manchester United are not going to go back in with another bid, because Manchester United are probably thinking, what's the point? Everton have shown no sign that they're willing to lower the price on Jarrad Branthwaite. It was obvious that we were trying to sign him before the end of the last financial year, before July the 1st. We were trying to push our luck a little bit. We were hoping Everton needed to sell and they would accept a low ball offer from us. Now that Everton obviously didn't need to sell Branthwaite to get over the line in terms of the financial year and PSR, they're going to be looking at it thinking, we can demand a high fee for Jarrad Branthwaite, and I just don't think Manchester United should go for that, and I don't think they will. I like Jarrad Branthwaite. I think he's super talented. I think for his age, he's got a very high ceiling. But at the end of the day, Everton, if they're holding out on 70 to 75 million, Manchester United can't afford to do that. So I think the right thing would be to walk away. And I think it's clear that Everton obviously aren't desperate for the money for him, or else they would have sold before the end of the financial year. And now it's a new one. I think that will be a difficult deal to manufacture. But you never know. Everton might start to come down. They might want to invest in their squad themselves. They might feel like it's the right time to cash in on Branthwaite. They might come down a little bit. Man United might go back in and say, look, we really want to get this deal over the line. What can we do? What add-ons can we put together? But for me, anything over the 65 million mark for Branthwaite, mixing his first and last name together, for Jared Branthwaite, I'd be walking away, because I think Manchester United need to do intelligent deals, and as good as he is, that wouldn't be intelligent for me. I think that's too much money. But you've also got Barada and Ashworth now working together. Barada knows his stuff inside out. Dan Ashworth, obviously, if we've waited this long for him, we're willing to go jump through all these hoops for him, you'd think he would be a really good sporting director. We've heard of his background, we've heard of his pedigree. He looks like he's got the CV to back it up. You expect these two to be working on these deals and to make the right decisions. We don't expect a world in which Ed Woodward goes back in with a stupid £80 million offer for Harry Maguire, because we're desperate to get a defender over the line. We have multiple options. We're looking at Ligt. We're going to talk about that in a sec. As good as Branthwaite is, you know, you've got to draw the line somewhere, and for me, 65 million would be the top of that line. So let's see what happens with Branthwaite, but for the minute it looks like it's off. Do you think that's the right decision? Get down in the comments. Rob Dawson also said if Lindelof or Maguire leave, United will push to bring in 2 centre-backs, although the recruitment department are conscious that finances are tight and the squad needs another striker to replace Martial. Again, that's where the money from McTominay could come in. Or, to be fair, not even McTominay. We should be selling at least one of Lindelof or Maguire, like we should. If we're bringing in 2 centre-backs, we need to sell at least one of Lindelof or Maguire, we do. And if you're them centre-backs as well, and you're seeing United are going in for Branthwaite and Ligt, and they've also been looking at Todibo, it's pretty obvious that Ten Hag wants new centre-backs. It's pretty obvious that Ten Hag doesn't see you as part of the future, as a starting centre-back in his team. You know, at their age in their careers, do they really want to be on the outskirts? Do they really want to be on the back burner? Or do they want to be an important part of a team where they're starting week in, week out? As good as Maguire was last season in terms of, you know, the games he did play and the way he got himself into that team, his performances were really good. Ten Hag still doesn't see him as the future for Man United, so he wouldn't be wanting to go for 2 centre-backs. So one of them should depart, and I will judge Man United based on outgoings as well as incomings. And I know you can't force a player out. I get that. There's contracts, and you've got to have the interest from other clubs as well. But with Lindelof and Maguire, for me, one of them has to depart. Absolutely one of them has to depart. Steve Labo says, no more bench players. City has 2 starting 11s. That's what we need for rotation. Injuries, competition, etc. We should have sold McTominay last year. I mean, we shouldn't have sold McTominay last year because he was really important for us actually throughout last season, but I would be open to selling him now. Last summer, I wanted to sell McTominay, don't get me wrong. But if we would have sold him last year, he was important last summer, and I don't think people should, not last summer, he was important last season. I don't think people should disrespect that. Yes, right now, I think as we're looking to elevate, selling him, I think, you know, would be good in terms of bringing money in for us. But last season, he was important. Rory C says, any word on Casemiro? I heard rumours that he was happy to sit on his contract. What I saw on Casemiro, Rory, I've been told that Casemiro is definitely open to joining Saudi Arabia. So the news about he was happy to sit on his contract did shock me as well. I don't believe it, because I've been told by pretty good sources that he's open to going to Saudi Arabia, and I wouldn't usually bring that up because people will be like, oh, what's your source, Beth? You know, you don't have sources. And I'd never sit here and claim that I do. But I've been told by people that are in the know that Casemiro is open to going to Saudi Arabia. It might be wrong, and I'd hold my hands up if it was, but that's what I was told. Duncan AI, Bayern get Elise for 50 million, 220 grand a week, while selling us Ligt for 40 million, 260 grand a week. No chance he takes a pay cut with Rayola's agency, by the way. Pants pulled down. Gonna get onto that in a second. I Got the Juice says, he's also cost us points by not tracking back and leaving attackers alone when he should be marking them. Yeah, I'm not saying McTominay is the be-all and end-all, but I'm saying, like, he does deserve a bit of credit for what he did for us last season in certain points of the season. Alex Lang says, have you seen that we apparently are offering Højlund and cash for Osimhen? Lol. It's everywhere, but I can't see it ever happening. I'd love Osimhen, though. Absolutely never going to happen in a million years. Never going to happen in a million years, Alex. Never. Whoever's wrote that story, I'm sorry, but it's absolute rubbish. Højlund's not going anywhere. That Tommy Kid, member for 12 months, says, come on, you Reds, the home kit looks good. Honestly, the home kit is beautiful. Like, I can't lie. And the marketing team have smashed it, by the way. If we can get on the pitch the way our marketing team are like. You know, the Hoyland, Garnacho and the Kobe Mainoo recreation, that's going to sell your shirts. The Eric Cantona advertisement, like, that's brilliant. Like, it's making me want to go out and get one. I mean, the kit is giving me Vodafone vibes. Like, the kit is very, very nice, I've got to admit. Lee Cape Town says, personally, I don't care if he can do a 5k run. Oh, that's just disappeared. Personally, I don't care if he can do a 5k run. He needs to be a good player first, and also keeping young players like Collier out of the team. That's true. Collier does need to progress next season, and apparently is in line to be coming into the first team, so that's exciting, and you don't want players blocking that pathway. Rod McCormack says, great in both boxes, one of our own, he won't go. So, by the way, I think Collier is a different sort of player to McTominay. McTominay's not, I don't see McTominay as a holding midfielder. I don't even know what McTominay is. He's a utility player. He's a utility player, that's what he is. I don't think he's got a set position. When he plays alongside Bruno as the number 10, it leaves the midfield wide open, and I don't like it. When he plays as a holding midfielder, you don't get to utilise his attributes of him being able to get forward, which he can do quite well. Plus, like you said, tracking runners, he's not great at. He's somebody you use for 20 minutes at the end of the game, either to defend a lead or to try and get you a goal. That's what McTominay is if he does stay. Next up on the agenda is some news coming out surrounding Ligt. So this is coming from Plettigol, and Plettigol has been all over this story, and I think he's got really good knowledge on the Ligt deal. Obviously, Sky Germany, Bayern are in Germany, and he seemed to have good information on this. And he's come out and said that Bayern are demanding at least €50 million plus bonus payments for Ligt. The agent is in direct touch with Manchester United to try and find an agreement. So €50 million is £42 million. We already know he's on 250 grand a week. Should we be doing this deal? I'm going to be honest, this deal doesn't really excite me, the Ligt one. I would try to get excited for it. I would really try to get excited for it, but there's a few things that are really kind of flagging up as red flags in my head, and them things is the wage. Like a super chat just said, he's not going to take a pay cut. He's not going to. If Ligt comes to Manchester United, he's going to be getting paid 250 grand a week. I very, 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 very highly doubt he would take a pay cut. I really highly doubt it. Like, he doesn't have to. Why would he? So I assume Manchester United will be paying him at least 200 grand a week, but I assume he'd keep his contract. And I think when you turn euros into pounds, it's around 230 grand a week Ligt would be on a week, something like that. So he's on over 200 grand a week if he comes to Manchester United. And then £42 million as well on top of that for a player that Bayern Munich want to get rid of and need to sell, by the way. I would be negotiating this. I would be Leonardo DiCaprio style, Wolf of Wall Street, negotiating this, because we don't want to get our pants pulled down. We don't want to just give Bayern Munich what they want. And at the end of the day, they want to sell Ligt. They need to sell Ligt. They want to bring in Tar. Company's just bought a Japanese centre-back as well. You know, Ligt hasn't worked at Bayern. They need to sell him. Don't just go and pay the 42 million. If we really want Ligt, you've got to go and negotiate that fee down. For me, if we're going to be paying 250 grand a week, I wouldn't pay any more than like 30 million pounds. I'm not joking. Considering where he's at in his career and considering the fact that Bayern need to sell him, I think that's where we should be angling for. 30 million plus 10 million add-ons, and difficult add-ons as well. That's where I'd be at with Ligt, because, you know, he has had injuries. I wouldn't say he's injury prone though. The injuries he's had have been quite unlucky, and I wouldn't say he's injury prone. The one thing I would say is when I looked into Ligt, when the story broke this weekend, I couldn't believe my eyes when I seen that he's 24 years old still. That's what the exciting part is about Ligt. 24 years old, and he's done a lot in his career. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about Ligt, and you know, if he comes in, it's a fresh start, and he picks up where he left off with Erik ten Hag quite a few years ago when he was on the rise to be one of the best centre-backs in the world. Let's be honest. I mean, you can talk about some of his achievements. At that point in his career, I really wanted Ligt. He looked like he was going to be the next best thing, but hasn't worked out at Juve. Definitely hasn't worked out at Bayern. And if he comes in and it doesn't work out again at Manchester United, I've seen Matt speak about this on the morning show. You've got a very highly paid player there on a big contract. Where do you go from there? But there's But there is positives. And the positives are, he's worked with Erik Ten Hag before. Ten Hag has got the best out of him before. I mean, Ten Hag also has got the best out of Donny van der Beek before, and that didn't work out. But I do think these are completely different situations and scenarios. So he has got the best out of De Ligt before. He knows his personality. He's a massive leader. I mean, he was captain in Ajax at 18 years old in the Champions League. And he's young. He's 24. Martinez is 24. They've still got years to grow together. And I do think, when I've seen De Ligt playing at the top of his game, he's an excellent defender. It's just trying to find that on a consistent basis. And can he do that in the Premier League with Erik Ten Hag? You'd like to think so, considering he's the manager that's got the best out of him in the past. I've just been told to check my WhatsApp, so I mean, I bring that in a second. It's just a little bit about Amrabat. We're just on De Ligt at the moment. So get your comments in on that. So Martinez isn't 24, Beth. Get your facts correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Has he had his birthday recently? Put me in prison. I got it wrong. Oh, he was 26. Wow, okay, fair enough. I was 2 years out. Wow, why did I think Martinez was 24? He must have been 24 when we signed him, and them years have just gone by so quickly. Martinez is 26. See, that's mad to me. The fact that Martinez is older than De Ligt, like it doesn't function right in my brain. But he is. De Ligt's just had a very long career so far because he came onto the scene so early. So why do Bayern want to get rid of De Ligt? That's a question that a lot of people keep asking. Well, Company has signed centre-back already. They're also wanting to get Tar from Bayer Leverkusen. De Ligt is a big earner at Bayern, so they're probably going to want to be getting him off the books. And I think, did he fall out with Thomas Tuchel? He must have done if Eric Dyer was starting ahead of him. I think Eric Dyer was starting ahead of him. I mean, Eric Dyer was also starting ahead of Kim Min-jae at one point as well. So De Ligt was towards the bottom of the pecking order, really, in terms of centre-backs-wise at Bayern Munich under Thomas Tuchel for a long time. But the positives around De Ligt, a few that I wrote down. You know, he's captain in Ajax at 19 years old as a teenager. Champions Leagues. I mean, everyone remembers that speech, and we've talked about it so many times. A speech doesn't get you, starting centre-back at Manchester United, but it was a brilliant speech that showed his leadership at such a young age. Golden Boy winner at 18 years old, the first defender to win the Golden Boy. Still only 24, and he's played his best football under Erik Ten Hag before. You've got two proper leaders there at the back in Lisandro Martinez and De Ligt, who both know how Ten Hag wants to play. Both have played their best football under Ten Hag. You'd like to think that's a partnership that could complement each other and take us forward into the future. The only thing is that concerns me, the wage concerns me, and the fact that this is a risk, like it is. But De Ligt at his best, when De Ligt is playing at his best, he's very, very, very good. Very good. So it's just a risk. Does it work or does it fail? And that's the risk that Manchester United have to decide whether they want to take. Get in the comments down below whether you would do that or not. Would you want De Ligt at Manchester United? Would you want to take that risk? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. We've got... Okay. Aaron S. That's not true, Beth. De Ligt played alongside Dyer, benching Kim Min-jae and Upamecano. Okay, wrong. I was wrong in that one. I was wrong in that one then, if that's the case, which I should have remembered, really, because I was watching Bayern all across the Champions League. That's just my head getting mashed up. Kim Min-jae was the one that was getting benched. I swear Upamecano played quite a few games, though. Quite a few games for Bayern Munich in the Champions League. But if I'm getting that wrong, then fair enough. De Ligt was playing. I mean, I'm sure Upamecano was playing in the Champions League, but I might have got that wrong. So forgive me if I have. I'd have to look into that. Duncan AI says, the moment he gets injured, we'll be wondering why we bought a player on over 250 grand a week with 3 knee ligament injuries in the last 2 years. That's the thing. Injuries is a risk. The wage is a risk. But I think undoubtedly when De Ligt is at his top level, he's a top player. So let's see what happens. But I do think De Ligt is something, again, at the transfer that we could get over the line quite quickly. but I wouldn't be paying 42 million for him. I really wouldn't. I think that's just handing Bayern exactly what they want. That's Bayern it's a brilliant deal for Bayern Munich, that. It's a brilliant, it's like Bayern Munich ringing up United and saying, look, we know Maguire's on around 190 grand a week. And, you know, we know he's not really part of your plans moving forward, and you've got the centre-backs coming in. But I tell you what, you want 35, 40 million for him, you've got it. We'll take his wage off your books as well. Like, and I'm not comparing Maguire to Ligt, because I think Ligt is a better defender than Maguire. A lot better of a defender than Maguire, honestly, I do. But it's the same situation. Bayern don't really see Ligt as part of their future, and they want to move him off the books. Man United don't really see Maguire as part of their future, and they want to move him off the books. You're just kind of going up to Bayern Munich and just giving them exactly what they want. Of course, we get a good player in return, but it is a risk and it is a big wage. So Man United really need to negotiate hard on the Ligt deal, in my opinion. And we've got a couple more super chats coming in before we end the show. Daniel Winstanley says, open to selling Scott, but don't give him away. That's exactly how I feel on it as well. And the poll on McTominay is 78% sell, 22% keep. That is an absolute landslide. Michael says, Ligt should take a pay cut to 200 grand a week. Why would he? I mean, for game time, maybe, but it's very rare nowadays that players are willingly going to go and take a pay cut. And we've got Leslie saying Lissandro and Ligt will be a rejuvenated Lissandro and Varane combo on another level. Arthur says every transfer is a risk. Ligt is still a huge talent and I'm excited for it. The only thing is the fact he's only 24. He's only 24 still. That is mind-blowing. So there is still so much time for Ligt. And he is an exciting talent. So I'll get behind it when we sign him and I'll be excited for it, but there are risk factors there and I don't think we should overpay. Definitely not. Because I think Bayern will come lower. I think they have to. I really do think they do. And last but not least, I just wanted to say the news on Dan Ashworth was, have I got it here? That Manchester United paid significantly less than 20 million Newcastle initially wanted for Dan Ashworth, and that was coming from Pete Hall. Then Mark actually messaged me, Goldbridge messaged me and said he thinks it was around 8 million that we paid for Dan Ashworth. So brilliant work from INEOS. I know it took a while. Yes, it would have been nice to get Dan Ashworth in earlier, but he's starting with immediate effect and we've paid around 8 million for it. I think considering that Newcastle were trying to take us to court and wanted 20 million and we're going to long it out for 18 months, 8 million is absolutely brilliant and we can get to work, get working on these deals. First task, Dan, is get that price down, 42 million for Ligt, because I think that's a little bit too much considering the whole package of that. But look everyone, hit a like on the video, 2 p.m. show, a lot of news to cover there on the 2 p.m. show. The transfer window is getting started now, things are heating up and I think things will start to progress a lot quicker than we've seen in the first few weeks of June, that's for sure. Going into July now, you know, the Euros are getting to them stages where teams are going out, good teams are going out, and the transfer window, I think it's going to start moving. I think there's hopefully some outgoings on the horizon and some incomings too. And it looks like Ligt and Ugarte and Xerxes are towards the top of that hotometer on coming in. So get in the comments down below. Would you sell McTominay? What would the fee be for Ligt? Should we go and get Ligt? How do you feel about Ugarte? Do you think we should go back in for Branthwaite? Get all your comments in down below. Hit a like on the video. I'm off on my holidays now. I'm off on my holidays for a week, so I won't be around on the United stand for a little bit. But when I get back, I'm hoping to come back to some signings. But I also don't want to miss them at the same time. I want to be here for the breaking news. We'll see how it develops. But look, everyone, thank you for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one.